Do you know which are the strongest storms on Earth? Supercells, tornadoes, or something else? And what about massive ocean-borne monsters that can erase islands from the map overnight? From hurricanes in the Atlantic to typhoons in the Pacific, tropical cyclones have killed millions and cost trillions. But which storm do you think was the strongest ever recorded? And did you know that the very first officially recognized Category 5 hurricane in the Atlantic struck more than 100 years ago? Our journey through history begins in 1924, when the Cuba Hurricane roared across the Caribbean. It was the first officially recorded Category 5 in the Atlantic. It struck Cuba, the Bahamas, and parts of Florida, killing about 90 people and causing widespread destruction across islands and coastal communities. In 1928, the San Felipe II Okeechobee hurricane devastated Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, and Florida, causing catastrophic flooding around Lake Okeechobee and roughly 4,000 deaths, making it one of the deadliest U.S. area storms of the early 20th century. The ABACO hurricane in 1932 battered the Bahamas with extremely powerful winds and storm surge. It held Category 5 intensity for a full day, causing massive damage to islands and shipping. In November 1932, the CAMAGUEY hurricane struck Cuba, the Bahamas, and Bermuda, killing over 3,000 people and inflicting tens of millions in damage, making it one of the deadliest Caribbean storms on record. The following year, the Cuba Brownsville hurricane ravaged Cuba before making landfall near Brownsville, Texas. Hundreds perished, and significant destruction occurred across the Yucatan and Gulf Coast. The Tampico hurricane in 1933 struck the Yucatan and northeastern Mexico with severe storm surge and wind damage. Nearly 200 lives were lost, and the economic impacts were substantial for the region. A powerful Category 5, the 1935 Labor Day hurricane obliterated communities like Isla Mirada in the Florida Keys, killing over 400 people, resulting in one of the greatest natural disaster death tolls in modern U.S. history. The New England hurricane in 1938, also known as the Long Island Express, made landfall with little warning, destroying coastal towns across Long Island and New England. Hundreds died, and economic losses were immense for the time. The 1944 Great Atlantic Hurricane struck the U.S. Northeast and Atlantic Canada, causing extensive coastal destruction and hundreds of fatalities. It remains a significant benchmark storm from the World War II era. The modern era of Pacific tropical storms classification began in 1947 with Typhoon ROSALIND, the very first storm to be officially called a super typhoon by the JTWC. Just a few years later, in 1951, Typhoon Iris became the first Category 5 equivalent super typhoon on record, proving that the Pacific could generate storms of unimaginable intensity. In the same year, Typhoon RUTH struck Japan, peaking at a central pressure of 924 hectopascals and causing severe flooding and over 572 deaths, with damage to tens of thousands of homes and millions in property losses. In 1953, Hurricane Carol reached Category 5 intensity offshore before impacting New England and Bermuda. Losses were modest by today's standards, but the storm highlighted the vulnerability of the U.S. Northeast to intense hurricanes. In 1955, Hurricane Janet struck the Lesser Antilles and Yucatan as a Category 5, killing over 1,000 people and causing extensive destruction across the Caribbean and Central America. On the other side of the Earth, another monster appeared, Super Typhoon Ruth. According to historical records, Ruth in 1955 lasted almost 6 days and had a minimum pressure of 925 hectopascals. It is often listed with peak winds of around 208 miles per hour and considered one of the strongest storms of that season. However, reliable records of human toll or economic damages are lacking, and many of the dramatic numbers sometimes attributed to it remain unverified. Just 4 years later, Typhoon Vera in 1959, also known as the Aizuan Typhoon, struck Japan with catastrophic power. It killed over 5,000 people, making it the deadliest typhoon in Japanese history, and caused damages exceeding $600 million. In the same year, Typhoon JOAN battered Taiwan with record winds, killing 11 people and leaving scars across the island. These early storms showed just how deadly the Pacific could be. 2 years later, in 1961, Typhoon Nancy arrived with winds that challenged meteorological records. For decades, Nancy was listed with sustained winds over 215 miles per hour, making it one of the strongest cyclones ever recorded, although later studies revised the numbers. Regardless, its intensity was undeniable. Nancy churned through the Ryukyu Islands and struck Japan with ferocious power, destroying more than 11,000 homes and cutting power for millions. Over 200 lives were lost and damages reached $500 million, enormous for its time. In the same year, Hurricane Esther reached Category 5 intensity offshore of the eastern U.S. It caused damage along the East Coast and served as one of the early satellite aerostorms studied for patterns and tracking. Hurricane Hattie devastated Belize in October 1961 as a Category 5, destroying much of Belize City and killing hundreds. Its impacts prompted relocation of the capital inland. In 1962, Super Typhoon Karen changed Guam forever. With winds exceeding 170 miles per hour, Karen flattened most of the island's infrastructure. 11 fatalities were reported. Damages hit $250 million, making it one of the costliest storms of its era. Hurricane INEZ was long-lived and destructive, impacting the Caribbean, Mexico, and Florida in 1966. Hundreds died, and heavy damage occurred across multiple countries. In 1967, Hurricane BEULAH struck the Yucatan and northern Mexico, bringing deadly wind, rain, and surge. Though fatalities were lower than some others, damage was extensive in affected areas. A catastrophic Category 5 in the U.S. Gulf Coast was Hurricane Camille in 1969. Hurricane Camille unleashed extreme storm surge and flash flooding, killing hundreds and generating over $1 billion in damage at the time. Hurricane EDITH reached Category 5 strength over the Caribbean, affecting islands and parts of Central America in 1971, causing dozens of deaths and severe, localized destruction. In 1972, Typhoon Rita emerged as the longest-lived super typhoon ever observed, lasting over 3 weeks. Rita tested forecasting capabilities and showed how prolonged storms could disrupt entire regions. In 1977, Hurricane ANITA intensified to Category 5 in the southwestern Gulf/Caribbean region, causing destructive winds and coastal damage before weakening over land. In 1979, Hurricane David struck the Caribbean and killed over 2,000 people, becoming one of the deadliest modern storms in the region, and caused widespread destruction across several islands and the Dominican Republic. However, in that year, the Pacific saw the largest and most powerful tropical cyclone ever measured, Super Typhoon Tip. With a diameter of more than 2,000 kilometers, nearly half the size of the continental U.S., Tip reached winds of 190 miles per hour and set the record low pressure of 870 millibars. Tip struck Japan, where floods and landslides killed nearly 100 people, with damages over $1.5 billion. In 1980, Hurricane Allen was among the most intense Atlantic hurricanes on record by wind speed. It traversed the Caribbean and Yucatan, causing widespread devastation and substantial fatalities. Just a few years later, in 1983, Typhoon FORREST set a record for the fastest intensification ever observed, deepening explosively within hours. Though less deadly than Tip, FORREST stuns scientists and remains a benchmark in rapid intensification studies. The massive Hurricane GILBERT in 1988 battered Jamaica and parts of Mexico as a Category 5, inflicting enormous agricultural and infrastructural losses and hundreds of deaths. In 1989, Hurricane Hugo struck Caribbean islands and the U.S. East Coast, including the Carolinas. Hurricane Hugo caused widespread destruction and became one of the costliest storms of its era. The 1990s brought a new wave of destructive typhoons. In 1990, Typhoon Flo battered Japan with flooding rains that killed more than 40 people and caused billions in damages. Typhoon Mike, locally named Rupiying, devastated the Philippines, killing more than 700 people and leaving millions homeless. The following year, 1991, became infamous with two record storms. Typhoon Yuri, one of the most intense cyclones ever observed over open waters, and Typhoon Mireille, which struck Japan and became the country's costliest storm of the 20th century. In 1992, Hurricane Andrew made catastrophic landfall in South Florida at near Category 5 intensity, destroying neighborhoods and triggering massive insured losses. It reshaped U.S. building codes and disaster policy. In 1995, Typhoon Angela tore across the Philippines with 185 miles per hour winds, flattening provinces and killing more than 900 people, one of the deadliest modern Pacific storms. Two years later, 1997 became infamous as the Super Typhoon season. That year, Typhoon Joan struck the northern Philippines at Category 5 strength, while Typhoon Oliwa made a rare cross-basin journey, intensifying into a super typhoon that lashed Okinawa and Hokkaido. Oliwa killed 17 people and caused costly damage in Japan. Typhoon Winnie in August 1997 devastated China with catastrophic floods and storm surge. It became one of the deadliest and costliest storms to strike China in the 1990s, killing more than 370 people, leaving millions homeless, and causing damages estimated at over $3 billion. Typhoon Paka completed the season's chaos, devastating Micronesia and Guam with winds exceeding 170 miles per hour. Damages reached $580 million. These storms made 1997 one of the most active and destructive typhoon years in history. In 1998, Typhoon Zeb struck the northern Philippines with Category 5 strength, unleashing torrential rains, landslides, and winds near 160 miles per hour. It killed over 100 people, displaced hundreds of thousands, and later impacted Taiwan and Japan, causing widespread flooding and agricultural losses. In 1998, Hurricane Mitch unleashed catastrophic rainfall and inland flooding in Central America, particularly Honduras and Nicaragua. With over 11,000 fatalities, it stands as one of the deadliest Atlantic storms on record. After a quieter period, 2002 saw Typhoon Pongsona strike Guam, destroying thousands of homes and causing damages of more than $700 million, leaving the island in darkness for weeks. In 2003, Hurricane Isabel reached Category 5 at peak and later struck the U.S. mid-Atlantic, causing major storm surge, coastal flooding, and billions in damage in the eastern U.S. Hurricane Ivan in 2004 was another powerful long-track storm that devastated parts of the Caribbean and the U.S. Gulf Coast. It caused widespread destruction and enormous economic losses across several countries. In 2005, Hurricane Emily reached Category 5 briefly in mid-2005 and brought heavy damage to the Windward Islands, Jamaica, and Mexico before weakening significantly before final landfall. In the same year, Hurricane Katrina was one of the deadliest and costliest Atlantic storms. Hurricane Katrina flooded New Orleans after levee failures. Over 1,300 people died, and damage exceeded $100 billion. But it was not over. Hurricane Rita also intensified to Category 5 in the Gulf, striking the U.S. Gulf Coast and compounding the catastrophic losses of the 2005 season with additional fatalities and billions in damage. Also, Hurricane Wilma became one of the most intense Atlantic hurricanes ever recorded and impacted the Caribbean and Florida with huge wind and storm surge, becoming a major event of the 2005 season. Then, in 2006, Typhoon Haiyan emerged. It was a long-lived monster born in the Central Pacific that crossed into the west as a super typhoon, ravaging Wake Island with 160 miles per hour winds and waves over 15 meters. Damage topped $80 million, proving even remote islands were not safe. In the same year, Typhoon Saomai ravaged eastern China with extreme flooding and more than 400 deaths, one of the worst disasters in the country's typhoon history. In 2007, Hurricane Dean reached Category 5 in the Caribbean and struck Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, causing major agricultural and infrastructural damage and widespread power outages. Hurricane Felix devastated parts of Nicaragua and Central America as a fast-moving Category 5, producing tragic fatalities and significant structural damage. The next decade brought some of the deadliest storms ever recorded. In 2012, Typhoon Bopha, locally known as Pablo, struck Mindanao in the southern Philippines. Rare for its latitude, Bopha hit at Category 5 strength, burying entire villages in landslides and floods. Nearly 2,000 people died, with hundreds missing, and damages topped $1.2 billion. Just a year later, in 2013, came Typhoon Haiyan, known locally as Yolanda. Haiyan may have been the strongest tropical cyclone ever to strike land, with estimated winds of 195 miles per hour. The Philippines suffered catastrophic losses. Over 6,000 dead, millions displaced, and damages of $14 billion. Haiyan remains a turning point in disaster awareness. In 2014, Typhoon Ramasan tore through Luzon with winds over 150 miles per hour, killing nearly 200 and causing damages close to $8 billion. In 2015, Typhoon CHAN-HOM lashed eastern China, forcing the evacuation of over 1 million people. A year later, in 2016, Typhoon Merintai exploded to winds of 190 miles per hour, one of the strongest typhoons ever recorded, slamming into Taiwan and China with catastrophic power. In 2016, Hurricane Matthew became a powerful Category 5 east of the Caribbean. It later struck Haiti and the southeastern U.S., killing hundreds and causing widespread economic hardship and humanitarian crisis. Hurricane Irma carved a destructive path through the Caribbean and Florida in 2017. Extreme winds left massive destruction, and the storm became one of the costliest in modern times. Maria utterly devastated Puerto Rico in 2017, causing catastrophic infrastructure collapse, widespread humanitarian need, and a death toll later estimated in the thousands. In the next year, Hurricane Michael struck the Florida Panhandle as near Category 5. Michael caused catastrophic wind and storm surge damage and became one of the most destructive U.S. Gulf Coast storms. In the Pacific, Super Typhoon Mangkhut, or Ampong, slammed into northern Luzon with winds of 165 miles per hour, killing at least 134 people and causing damages of $3.8 billion. It then struck China and Hong Kong, shattering skyscraper windows and flooding towns. Just weeks later, Super Typhoon U2 devastated the northern Mariana Islands, leveling Saipan and Tinian with 180 miles per hour winds. U2 killed 30 people and caused $800 million in losses, the strongest storm ever to hit the islands. In 2019, Hurricane Dorian stalled over the Bahamas as an extremely powerful Category 5 for over 36 hours. It obliterated communities on Grand Bahama, resulting in major loss of life and prolonged recovery efforts. The same year brought Hurricane Lorenzo. It was an unusually Far East Category 5 near the Azores. Though it didn't cause catastrophic U.S. impacts, its intensity unusually far out in the Atlantic earned wide scientific interest. In October 2019, Super Typhoon Hagibis slammed into Japan, becoming the costliest typhoon in the country's history, with damages surpassing $15 billion. Despite advanced warnings, more than 100 people were killed as rivers burst their banks. In 2019, Typhoon Lekema triggered deadly landslides in China, killing more than 50 people and causing over $9 billion in losses. Just a year later, in November 2020, Typhoon Goni, or Raleigh, became the strongest landfalling cyclone ever observed. With 195 miles per hour winds, it flattened provinces in the Philippines, destroying over 200,000 homes. At least 32 people were killed, and damages reached $1 billion. In 2021, Typhoon Surigi rapidly intensified into one of the strongest April typhoons ever, reaching Category 5 status east of the Philippines. Though it never made a direct strike, Surigi displaced nearly 200,000 people and caused damages of around $500 million. More recently, in 2022, Typhoon Haiyan roared across the western Pacific and slammed into South Korea, becoming one of the strongest storms ever to hit the Korean peninsula. Then, in September 2022, Typhoon Namidal swept into Japan's Kyushu region with winds of 125 miles per hour, forcing mass evacuations. At least 17 people died, and billions in damage were reported. In the Atlantic Ocean, Hurricane Ian struck Cuba and southwestern Florida with catastrophic storm surge and flooding. It stands among the costliest U.S. hurricanes on record, with massive economic loss and over 160 casualties. In the next year, in May 2023, Typhoon Mawar battered Guam with 140 miles per hour winds, uprooting trees and destroying power grids. Damages exceeded $200 million, and it was the island's strongest storm in 2 decades. Just months later, Typhoon Doksuri lashed the Philippines, Taiwan, and China with 150 miles per hour winds and catastrophic rains. Over 150 people were killed, and damages surpassed $15 billion, making it one of the costliest storms in history. In July and August of 2023, Typhoon Haiyan brought weeks of heavy rain and wind to Japan, Taiwan, and Korea, leaving billions in damages and testing disaster preparedness across the region. Hurricane Lee in September 2023 reached Category 5 strength over the open Atlantic. It later affected Bermuda and Atlantic Canada with strong winds, but did not make a catastrophic landfall at peak intensity. A rare July Category 5, Hurricane Beryl impacted the Caribbean and the Yucatan before heading toward Texas in 2024. Its rapid intensification in mid-Atlantic waters highlighted modern forecasting challenges. In late 2024, Hurricane Milton brought Category 5 intensity and heavy damage across the Yucatan, the Bahamas, and parts of Florida, resulting in tens of billions in economic losses. In 2025, Hurricane Erin became a powerful Cape Verde-type Category 5. It affected regions near Cape Verde and contributed to broader North Atlantic storm activity. After that, Hurricane Humberto surged to Category 5 status with sustained winds of 160 miles per hour as it barreled over the Atlantic, making it one of the most intense storms of 2025. As Humberto intensified, it was not expected to make direct landfall, but its outer bands were already sending life-threatening swells, rip currents, and coastal flooding risks toward Bermuda and the U.S. East Coast. What was truly surprising was how quickly it jumped from a tropical storm to Cat 5. Many didn't expect such explosive intensification. The Pacific Ocean also had its own monster in 2025. Typhoon Ragasa became the latest super typhoon on record, continuing the unbroken chain of extreme Pacific storms. It gradually intensified and becoming a typhoon on September 19th. The storm underwent rapid intensification the next morning, reaching its peak intensity as a violent typhoon with a minimum pressure of 905 hectopascals and maximum wind of 168 miles per hour. Which of these hurricanes or typhoons surprised you the most? And is there one you think should be added? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss more deep dives into extreme weather and the ongoing tropical cyclone season.